Angles, parallel lines, and transversals. This is a digital lesson, and it gives students a lot of practice teaching them how these angles all relate to each other. So these are two parallel lines, line A and line B. Line C is a line that crosses both of those parallel lines. We call it a transversal. And there's some interesting things about how these angles relate. So angles that are opposite each other when two lines cross are called vertical angles. So these two angles in red are vertical. These two angles in blue are also vertical angles. The next slide, students are going to be asked to type in every pair of vertical angles that measure the same degrees. So they're going to be typing in B and C, F and G, E and H, A and D. Corresponding angles would be angles that are in the same position at each intersection. So B and F are corresponding, A and E are corresponding, and they have the same measurement. So on the next slide, students are going to be typing in vertical angles. Name 4 angles that are vertical. So BC, AD, FG, and EH. Now these two angles, they measure 180 degrees if you add them together. So we call them supplementary angles. So A and 130 are supplementary. We can find the value of A by just taking 180 degrees and subtracting 130. So on the next slide, students are going to name 4 pairs of supplementary angles. There are more than 4, so there might be more than one answer, different answers here from different students. 2 angles that add up to 180 degrees. They don't have to be next to each other to be supplementary. Now here we have one angles identified. Once they know one angle, they should be able to use what they know to figure out what the other angles equal, using vertical angles, supplementary angles, and etc. Now we have what they call alternate interior angles. They're interior because they're inside the two parallel lines. They're alternate because they're on opposite sides of the transversal. And they have the same measurement. So these two angles are the same. These two angles in blue are the same. Alternate interior angles. And then students are going to name 2 pairs of alternate interior angles. Alternate exterior angles, well, they're exterior, which means they're outside the parallel lines and they're on opposite sides. So these 2 angles in red are alternate exterior and these 2 in blue, and they have the same measurement. Then students are going to do the same thing here. They're going to name 2 pairs of alternate exterior angles. And they're given another diagram where they're given one of the angles and they have to find all of the rest. Then we go through the terms again. Students need to remember the vocabulary. So they look at these angles in red and then they have to identify them. Same thing on the next slide, vertical angles, alternate exterior, corresponding, and supplementary. And then one final practice for all of these terms, students are going to drag and drop the correct terms into their correct location in the sentence frames. So a lot of practice learning these terms, angles, parallel lines, and transversals, digital lesson.